Hello and welcome to everyone. Welcome to our 2024 Voting Rights Symposium. Are you all in? We're going to ask everyone this evening to please put your name, organization you're representing in the chat so we know who all is joining us tonight. We are excited and have just a wonderful, powerful panel together for you all tonight. And so excited to see so many people from across the Commonwealth joining us this evening. We're going to get started at about 7:06, just to allow maximum attendance for this evening. Again, please drop your name, organizations in the chat so we know who is joining the Virginia NAACP this evening. Tonight, if you all have questions, we will ask that you put those questions in the Q&A. We're going to monitor those and try to answer just as many that you all have tonight. We all know that this is a critical election season and want to make sure that we educate voters and get as many out to the polls, but also enable you all with the tools that you need to educate your community. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And as promised, the time is now 7:06, and I'd like to introduce you all to Ms. Gayleen Knoyton, who is Regional Vice President, as well as the Political Action Chair for the Virginia State Conference. Gayleen?
Thank you, Karen, and good evening, everyone. And look, happy early voting week. We know it starts on Friday. And so we have, as Karen said, we have an exciting panel discussion for you this evening. But before we get started, I want to introduce to you our state president, Reverend Cozy Bailey, to bring opening remarks.
Thank you, Gayleen, and welcome to everyone who is here and gathered this evening. This evening is a very important event in the continuum of what we consider the most important portions of voting. And that is first voter registration, then voter education, and then of course, voter mobilization, or what some people call get out the vote. Tonight is a voter education event. You will have an august panel assembled here, people who are experts in a variety of things that affect us in our daily lives. I ask you all to pay attention. I ask you to present your questions if you have them as we talk about some very, very critical items that you need to know as you make your decision in this consequential year of voting. Again, thank you all very much for all who are in attendance, all of our NAACP members, our allies and supporters. Thank you. And I turn it now back to Gayleen.
Great. Thank you, President Bailey. And as President Bailey said, this is an historic, critical election. And we need everyone at the table and everyone armed with the information and the points and critical info that we can share with our members, family, neighbors, and everyone when we're out here in the community, turning out the vote, mobilizing people and making sure that we turn people out in record numbers. I'm excited this evening to introduce you to our guests. We have Congressman Bobby Scott, who is the 3rd Congressional District. He's my congressman. And we also have Ryan Snow, who's the counsel for the Voting Rights Project, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. We have Dr. Eric Clavel, who's a policy analyst and the executive advisor to the president for governmental relations at Norfolk State University. We have Stephanie Owens. We have Tyler Sterling, who's the NAACP National Campaigns Director of Civic Engagement. And we have Ms. Phaedra Jackson, who's the Vice President of Advocacy for the National NAACP as well. Welcome, everyone. And we're going to dive right into our Project 2025 and also our voting rights panel. And we're going to start off with Congressman Scott. Congressman Scott, can you give us a brief overview of what Project 2025 is?
Thank you. Thank you, Gayleen. We know that voting is important. I live in Newport News, and just a couple of years ago, a House of Delegates race ended up in an exact tie, so that anybody who wasn't registered to vote could have registered, and or somebody didn't vote could have changed the outcome of that election. Just about a year ago, Michael Fagan's was the last General Assembly race to be decided. when it was decided, that was the vote that made it possible to elect Don Scott as Speaker of the House. So we know that every vote is important. The Republicans know that, and that's why they're trying to suppress the vote. They're trying to promote what's called the SAVE Act, which basically just requires people to produce a lot of documentation most people don't have readily available. A lot of people are going to slip through the cracks and not be able to register to vote. But if they win, they're going to be ready with Project 2025, which basically allows President Trump to be the dictator that he has claimed he wants to be on day one. And let me tell you, anybody dictator on day one will be, you can count on him being dictator on day two and afterwards. And the way he first does it is consolidating power. He's already got immunity from the Supreme Court, but he consolidates power by stripping all public employees of their civil service protection. So if you don't do exactly what he says when he says it, legal or not, he'll fire you and put somebody in there that will. And once he's got that all established, he's got policy. Now, I'm the lead Democrat on the Education and Labor Committee, so that's the first thing I looked at. The education, what does he want to do? Abolish the Department of Education. Cut Title I funding to support low-income areas in education. Eliminate Head Start. Ban books and make up history. They want to cut back on school lunches, and they want to take money out of public schools and put it with vouchers into private education. They want to eliminate the student loan forgiveness programs. That's their idea of education. And labor, they want to eliminate the child labor laws, eliminate overtime protection. They want to undermine your right to join a union and specifically allow you to discriminate people based on the sexual orientation. They want to eliminate any sense of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. In climate, I think his position was exposed when he offered to the fossil fuel lobbyists, if you raise $1 billion for me, I'll eliminate all of the regulations. He wants to eliminate the EPA in the process. In housing, he wants to eliminate the programs to deal with discrimination and promote equity. In healthcare, he says he doesn't have a plan. He had a plan when he was president. CBO said it would increase prices the first year by 20%. 20-some million fewer people would have insurance. Those with pre-existing conditions will start losing their protections, and it won't be as good as what you got because you didn't have the minimum benefits. He'll have a national ban. He would not say at the debate whether he would sign a national abortion ban, even if lives are in jeopardy. He wants to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, which had the $35 for insulin and $2,000 maximum per year for seniors per year in drug out of pockets. He's going to eliminate, reduce your protections if you've got a pre-existing conditions, and cut your eligibility for Medicaid, and make it okay to deny people contraceptives. And tax policy, it's just simple. We're in favor of the child tax credit. They're in favor of tax cuts for billionaires. As that last tax cut had 80% of the benefits went to the top 1% in corporations. They want to weaponize the DOJ so we can go after his enemies. Of course, there's not going to be any gun safety. And one of the most sinister things is they want to get rid of what are called consent decrees. When the DOJ goes after police departments and finds systemic racism, and they agree on what the city will do to fix it, they will submit the agreement to the court as a consent decree. They want to get rid of those so that the cities can go back to the discriminatory practices they've had. President Trump has tried to deny involvement, but everybody knows he's been praising it. All of the things he's been doing so far are consistent with it. all of his friends and former allies wrote it, and he lies anyway. So if he denies it, you can't believe him. They have told us, as vice presidential nominee Tim Walzer said, if a coach has a game plan, he intends to use it. They have a game plan. We got to make sure we register and turn out to vote and cast the votes that we need to cast to make sure that this never goes into effect. So thank you, Gayleen and Reverend Bailey and NAACP for giving us an opportunity to discuss a very dangerous document, Project 2025.
Great, thank you so much. So let me just a sidebar, the NAACP is nonpartisan, but as our national president said, we are political as hell. So you need to know that. So we support issues that support our agenda. And so we're only going to give facts, not fiction this evening. And I just want to note to everyone that this is a nonpartisan conversation on the NAACP part. Next, we're going to go to, and this is an open conversation. Pretend that you're all in my living room on the sofa. And so anybody can jump in and speak, but I want to go to Dr. Clavell next. And can you explain some key components of Project 2025 and why it's a threat to our democracy?
Thank you very much, Gayleen. Everyone here that's assembled, thank you so much for the ACP for the work that you do. Congressman Scott, thank you so much for what you do as the dean of our congressional delegation. I say all the time, you're my congressman as well, but you're also the smartest congressman on the Hill because you actually read the bills. Everybody calls you for your guidance. So thank you for the work that you do. What I want to do, the congressman talked about a lot of key issues that Project 2025 raises, especially as it relates to the impact on voting. But what I want to do, I want to give some context around what Project 2025 is, and I want to link it to also Agenda 47. Agenda 47 is not talked about a lot, but it is the platform of the GOP candidate, Donald J. Trump, should he enter the White House as president the day after the election. So Project 2025, what is it? In essence, it's a presidential transition project. It is an idea that came about through what's called the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is a very conservative think tank, the most conservative think tank in Washington, D.C. Came about after the Nixon administration. And currently, this particular project has not just it as its head lead, but also over 100 organizations across the country partnering with it on a state level and also national level. I'll go over some of those in just a moment. But you've heard former President Trump talk about that he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. He never heard of it. Well, according to Project 2025 itself, the Heritage Foundation Transition Project was organized through the Heritage Foundation by the former chief of staff for the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, during the Trump administration, who currently serves as the director of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, and also the former special assistant to the president and associate director of presidential personnel, who serves as the associate director of the project itself. This particular project is led by two individuals from the former Trump administration, directly connected, and also many others that were part of that administration as well. Now, this project, according to Project 2025, is an effort of a broad coalition of conservative organizations that have come together to ensure one thing: a successful administration begins, in their eyes, January 2025, with the right conservative policy recommendations and properly vetted and trained personnel to implement them should they take government on day one. Let's talk about day one. This particular project has 4 pillars. 1 being the policy, 2 being the personnel, 3 being the training, and then 4, implementing this particular project in 180 days. It's called a 180-day playbook. They're not playing with this particular issue. They're moving expeditiously with it. With this, they're going to create a government that we haven't really seen, that we've never seen in our democracy. As a matter of fact, there is if you take a look at our three branches of government, our legislative, judicial, and executive branch, where our legislative makes laws, appoint presidential appointees, and so forth, and our judicial decide laws, whether they're constitutional or not, it would merge and consolidate this power effectively into the executive office, where it will give the president the ability to sign laws, veto laws, pardon people, appoint federal judges, and again, subvert the legislative and judicial branches of our balanced government. In other words, Project 2025, according to this concept within itself, wants to consolidate power under the president of the United States, should that be Donald J. Trump. With that being the case, Project 2025 provides that roadmap for the next conservative president to downsize government, fundamentally change how it works, also including tax system, immigration enforcement, social welfare programs, energy policy, and particularly those that are focused on our climate. When we talk about climate change, many times we don't talk about vulnerable communities, but in our communities, African-American communities, working class communities, poor communities, climate change is real, Just look at your neighborhoods. Anytime there's flooding, anytime that the weather changes drastically, our communities and our people suffer the most. And of course, with the least amount of resources, they simply cannot afford to get back on their feet in a timely manner. That's why this particular plan is dangerous, not just for our country and our democracy, the way that it is created under our Constitution, but for the most vulnerable communities that we have around us. Lastly, when I talk about Agenda 47, this is the policy plan for Donald J. Trump should he become elected president. It has 20 agenda points. The first, and I'm not going to go over all of these, but I'll hit some highlights. First, they want to stop migrant invasion to seal the border. Of course, we know that there is a lot of misinformation about that. And with that, they want to also carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. We've heard and seen the misinformation about Haitian, quote unquote, illegal immigrants, which have been debunked to be legal in Ohio and doing things that they're not doing. He also wants to stop outsourcing and turning the United States into a manufacturing superpower by unleashing our energy, again, subverting the EPA laws. In addition to that, he wants to end the weaponization of government against the American people by basically taking away their power and putting it under the executive office. It also wants to he wants to cancel the electric vehicle mandate, cut costly and burdensome regulations. You want to keep men out of women's sports. And the congressman talked about protections around other communities where this affects. He wants to also cut, and this is very important, cut funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, and other what they deem as inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. In other words, this involves not just cutting the funding, but eliminating the U.S. Department of Education. And also they want to, quote unquote, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. We know that this is simply code talk for eliminating these types of votings. We know here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we've been fortunate by our legislature under Governor Northam to have early voting, protections of voting, to actually have a state voting rights act, one of the first in the country to do so, to protect the right to vote. So when we take a look at Project 2025, the concept from the Heritage Foundation, coupled with personnel from the former Trump administration and the former president's agenda himself, Agenda 47, it simply means one thing. Based upon what they're telling us, what we see, it's turning the clock back upon the progress that's been made over years, decades, and even centuries to get our America to a point to where it is now, where individuals can vote, can operate freely in the country without any type of violence against them or any type of intimidation, and be able to live the freedoms that we're all promised to live in our country. Lastly, I would say this particular document is 900 pages, over 900. And of course, the former president's agenda is on his website. I put them both in the chat. You can click on it, save it, and read it for yourself. But it's not what they are telling us that is the most dangerous. This is in our face. This is their playbook that they're showing us. But the question becomes, what are they not telling us? What are they not saying? And how dangerous could that be? Once again, thank you so much, Gayleen, Congressman Scott, and all of you who are working tirelessly in your communities on behalf of the NAACP, its values, its principles, its policies to ensure that our community continues to be at the forefront of fighting for the rights of all, including, and most importantly, the right to vote. So I don't know about you, but I'm fired up.
You are. Thank you so much. And that's something we needed to say. So I want to be clear. So we're talking about the plan is Project 2025. Agenda 47 is the policy to carry it out. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So everybody should get that. What Agenda 47 is supposed to do, and that's to carry it out. Thank you so much, Dr. Clavell. Next, we're going to bring on Ryan Snow. So Ryan, we've had conversations around, we're doing work around the restoration of rights and making sure that the constitutional amendment gets passed in Virginia, but we've had several challenges. Ryan, we talked about so this is not new, what we're talking about, Project 2025. We have a history of this, and we go back to the 1902 convention, correct, Ryan? You want to talk a little bit about that? And then we would go to Nixon's, we go to the Southern Strategy, and then we come up to this. So I wanted people to be able to see that there's been a track and the root to all of this with the 1902 convention in Virginia.
Sure. Thanks, Gillian. And hi, all. My name is Ryan Snow. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a counsel with the Voting Rights Project of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law in DC. I'm a proud Virginia resident, and I'm very proud to be working with Virginia NAACP in longtime partnership, very, very productive partnership. So we've been working on this issue through a public records and advocacy strategy for the last couple of years. And as you all know, the current governor took Virginia back over 100 years to the post-Reconstruction Constitution, which was explicitly designed to prevent Black Virginians from casting their ballot. And a number of strategies for that, but one of the key ones was, of course, felony disenfranchisement. And so you can read some quotes from the floor debate. It is absolutely clear that the felony disenfranchisement provision in the Constitution, the Virginia Constitution, was absolutely designed explicitly to prevent Black Virginians from voting. And then, the state then added to the list of disenfranchising felonies to choose crimes that could be disproportionately enforced against Black Virginians and would be through selective policing, essentially. So this is, very, very old tactic. Virginia's not alone. It was a very common tactic throughout the South post-Reconstruction constitutions. In part out of recognition for this and the discriminatory intent behind the provision, and of course the discriminatory impact even up until modern times, the preceding three governors created some form of automatic restoration of rights upon completion of terms of sentence that affected all or most. At first, Governor McDonnell was just nonviolent offenders, and then it moved into all offenders. And Governor Youngkin comes in and decides that he believes that he has a duty to do an individualized review of all of the applications. This, of course, was not true. It was an excuse to go back to an individualized process that is both very, very slow. And we went from having up to 100,000 individuals having their rights restored in a year to under Northam to something like 3,000 or 4,000 a year under Youngkin. So it's just by virtue of the way the process works, tens of thousands of Virginians, disproportionately Black Virginians, are going to be essentially disenfranchised or not reenfranchised and prevented from voting in this election, which is really ultimately it's a crisis, and it's it needs to be an absolutely top priority for the General Assembly. And as Galen said, we're working together with a coalition of organizations to try to make sure that that is the first item on the agenda for the General Assembly to get that that constitutional amendment, passed, and then of course, before the voters, it could not be a higher priority there.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah, we wanted to be able to show that this is really about the disenfranchisement of African-American votes, if you look at the bottom line to it. Because even as Congressman talked about, he was talking about how we were able to gain seats. If you look at the Southern strategy was all about packing Black people in different districts so they can be in control of everything. Congressman Scott, do you want to add to the Southern strategy?
Well, the Southern strategy started with, and it's been indicated, started with Nixon to attract conservative Democrats from the Democratic Party on the issue of race. When the Democrats started supporting civil rights, Voting Rights Act, when President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, he said that we lost the South for a generation. He missed it by a couple of decades. But that's why they left the Democratic Party. They didn't support the civil rights agenda of the Democrats. That was a Southern strategy, and that is basically how the modern Republican Party is constituted, from former Democrats that are there because of their opposition to civil rights. It's not a subtle strategy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you. Phaedra, can you tell us some of the core initiatives that the NAACP is supporting or really promoting on the danger of this Project 2025?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Galen. So much of what has already been stated is on the radar for the national NAACP. We know that, much of Project 2024 really relates to things like gender, sexuality, race, and aiming to end almost all of the federal government's efforts to, really achieve equity and even collect the data that could be used to track outcomes across the public and private sectors. And so we're really focusing on watching out for all of the issues that attack our civil rights, that attack us on the economy, on education, and on healthcare. And what this looks like when we think about economy, right? We know from our voter research that economy is top of mind for Black voters right now, and the ability to afford goods and services, to be able to survive and support your family, right? And when we look at the attacks from Project 2025, one of the big attacks is really the labor force. Black folks overrepresent in the federal government. It is a large employer for us. And so one of the primary targets of Project 2025 is to remove that labor force, right? Remove us from that labor force and put in those who are aligned with Project 2025. Most of those folks don't look like people in our community, right? And so not only does that, take out the workforce, but it sets us at a disadvantage for employment. It sets us at a disadvantage for providing for our families, right? We all know the term good government job, but what that really is are having those folks who can withhold continuity of government. Similarly with education, right? We know that Project 2025 aims to really gut federal education policy limits, and including the elimination of the Department of Education. It would result in transfer and control of education policies to the states. I'm originally from Texas, and in Texas, you've seen a city like Houston, one of the largest school districts, the largest school district in the state, get taken over by the state, right? We have a federal Department of Education for a reason. We need federal oversight. You see attacks in states like Florida, and even here at home in Virginia for you all, where you see overreach from the state, ripping out our education and declaring teaching our history is illegal. And so we've really got to fight back. We've also got negative impacts for HBCU funding formulas and for federal funds for block grants to the states. So really, they're hitting us on every level. And then finally, when you think about health, right, we think about the threats to health. Black folks are already at a disadvantage when it comes to our health system. It is also a top issue when voters are going to the polls and thinking about access to affordable health care. And so Project 2025 cuts access to health care, it lowers the quality of care, and it provokes food insecurity and hunger. We're looking at shrinking our social safety net, cutting federal funding to states for Medicaid, placing life limits on caps on Medicaid coverage. I'm old enough to remember, before the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, there were lifetime limits on everything. You capped out and then you didn't have coverage anymore. And they're looking to roll us back to that. Repeals on the Inflation Reduction Act, reduction to access to food stamps, and so on. There's also a ton of calculated attacks on reproductive justice, calls on the FDA to revoke the approval of mifepristone, the limits of access to birth control through telehealth or mail, and the list goes on and on. And so in summation, these coordinated attacks on every aspect of our life, it's an existential threat to our community, but it is also a gift in the sense of it is an organizing opportunity, right? I can tell you that through our research, what we've learned is when we are able to inform our communities about the threat of 2025, folks are enraged and they're ready to fight back. And we know that the solution to fight back is to vote, is to be participatory in this democracy. And so I know my colleague Tyler from the civic engagement team will tell you about how to do it, but I will say the best way to motivate voters, particularly those who are thinking about sitting on the sidelines, particularly those who think voting doesn't matter, you can draw a direct line to almost any impact in any marginal voter's life where they don't think that their vote matters. And you can draw a connection to like, this impacts your life. If you've worried about your kids having asthma and you're worried about, the EPA being gotten rid of because you know that our communities have poor air quality, there's a direct link to that. If you're worried about your kids being able to learn their history and you're a parent, there's a direct link to that. So I would say leverage this threat to our community as a way to organize and to fight back, because we know that when our folks are educated, they're armed with the information and they're ready to register and go and vote.
Great, thank you. That was great. Thank you so much, Phaedra. So, Eric, what legal mechanisms can be used to protect Black and Brown communities from voter suppression efforts tied to Project 2025?
Well, first of all, that's a very good question. And unfortunately, I would say that the only real mechanism we have, because of the past voting, the decisions on voting rights by the Supreme Court, is to file a lawsuit after the fact, right? To show that there was some type of injury that was made or created. But it's really before that, because you really don't, when you're reacting to something, you're already too late. That's why these forums are so important. That's why, getting information out is so important, because now, because you know what the issue is, you know what the plan is, you can start now to combat that. Case in point, when we talk about voting, what are those particular IDs in your jurisdiction that you need in order to vote, and ensuring that those things that you have those things when you go to the polls. Now, in the event that you're turned away or you're harassed because of that, immediately you have a form of recourse because at that moment. So by being informed of what's happening, by knowing your rights and executing your rights and documenting when your rights have been abridged, those are really your main tools that you can use to combat any type of discrimination or intimidation that you have, especially when voting. But again, because of the decisions by the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court of the past voting rights, is very hard to have any other tools outside of filing a lawsuit and litigation after the fact.
Got you. Thank you so much. That's great. Ryan.
Like
Go ahead, Ryan. Dive in.
I was going to jump in. I'll turn the
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah. So I really think, I mean, so much of the focus, I'm a voting rights attorney and voting rights litigator. And, so much of the attention, we have, many national organizations that are focused on voting rights. And so much of the attention is on, active voter suppression bills that create practices that are going to be discriminatory, that are going to make it harder to vote. And that's very, very, very important. But I think the easiest way for someone to be disenfranchised is to not have the information they need to know how to participate. So there's a soft disenfranchisement of just confusing process and lack of information and lack of awareness and education. So public education is perhaps by far the most important thing, and of course turnout and getting people out, motivating people, as some of the other panelists have shared. But yeah, making sure that everybody in your community has the information they need to participate. And that could be you sharing some information. That could be going online, getting some, doing some research and sharing that information directly. That can also be you promoting the election protection hotlines, 866 Our Vote, when the Lawyers Committee is one of the conveners of election protection. We together with Virginia NAACP and other state partners, putting together a field program. You can volunteer to be a poll monitor in your community and make sure that people at the polling place have the information they need. But just to give you a sense, the 866 Our Vote hotline gets over 100,000 calls a year, and in 2020 we got 240,000 calls nationally, and the vast majority of those calls are, am I registered? How do I check if I'm registered? How do I get registered if I'm not? How do I request a ballot? Where's my polling place? Simple questions. Those are the barriers for folks, and it's just so important to emphasize. You can't emphasize enough that you could be an advocate here. You can, in your community, make sure that community members have the information they need to participate.
Great, thank you so much. Congressman Scott, how can citizens best engage with their representatives to ensure that voting rights remains a priority in future legislative sessions?
Well, one of the things they have to do is make it an issue that legislators understand how important it is. I mean, we make it a partisan issue and expect Democrats to do it all. Republicans don't pay the price they ought to be paying for failing to support voting rights. If you look back through the political commentary for the last 4 years, you would think that the reason we don't have voting rights passed is because of Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. Well, what about Tim Scott? What about all the Republicans? I mean, they don't get a pass. We ought to make them pay the price for their unanimous opposition to voting rights. There are a bunch of them want to shut the government down if we don't pass what's called the SAVE Act. I mean, that's just a piece of nonsense. It says immigrants can't vote. Make it illegal for immigrants to vote. Well, if you're not a citizen, you can't vote. Period. That's already the law. What it does is it makes every citizen prove their citizenship. Now, okay, go get your birth certificate. What birth certificate? Where he was here somewhere. You got to go get all your documentation to prove that you are a citizen. Well, that's why they call it voter suppression, not voter denial. It doesn't deny you the right to vote. But if you've got in Newport News and Hampton, a couple of 100,000 people trying to get the documentation, a lot of them aren't going to be able to get it. Disproportionately, those that don't want to afford to pay extra for a new birth certificate, and that has political implications. And they're not subtle about it. They know there's no illegal voting by non-citizens. They will be denying 10, 20, 100 times more citizens the right to vote than anybody they catch trying to vote illegally, just by putting these roadblocks in. And they're going to shut down the government. Some of them want to shut down the government, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it. But it's that kind of attitude. We need to do everything we can just to make sure that we vote. Whatever rights we've got left, we've got to exercise them and make sure we vote. As you have indicated, check your registration so that on election day you don't get fooled. Vote early, get it over with, so that when they start playing games on election day, your vote's already been cast. You don't have to worry about intimidation, people with intimidating you or hassling you at the polling at the precincts. We need to make sure we get out and vote early. Start September 20th. You've got Saturday and Sunday voting later on. but I'm gonna try, we're voting on the morning of the 20th. I'm gonna try to get back so I can vote on the 20th. And if not, then I'll be voting on the following Monday. But we need to make sure that we cast the votes because these votes make a difference, and they're doing everything they can to put roadblocks in the way, and they will continue to do it on almost a unanimous, unanimously. But all of the legislators need to be called. Why are you not supporting? Why are you not a co-sponsor on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act? How many Republicans are co-sponsors? I don't think there are any. All of them ought to be called to task for that, each and every one. And until we make them pay a price, it's going to be hard to get these bills passed. Once they start seeing they pay a price, when the NAACP comes after them for not supporting voting rights, and they see there's some downside to joining the Republican cause to suppress the vote, when they see there's some downside to it, they'll cut it out. So we have to make them pay. It has to be a political price to pay to support voter suppression.
Great, thank you so much. I want to bring Tyler on because I know Tyler is representing our voter protection for National NAACP as well. So Tyler, in terms of the upcoming elections, what should voters be most concerned about regarding the protection of their voting rights?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to take this in a slight of a kind of a different direction with regards to early voting and election protection and protections. Again, my name is Tyler Sterling. I am the National Campaigns Director at the NAACP, do all things civic engagement, talking to voters, mobilizing, to which Stephen and I are definitely going to discuss. But when it comes to voter protection, I want us to think about this in a frame of vote, just vote. And I don't want to say just vote and say just, making it seem like it's the most easiest thing possible. But I want everyone on this call to know that through everything that Ryan has lifted up, through the things that Congressman Scott has discussed on how both NAACP National, the Virginia State Conference, and the Lawyers Committee, and all of our partners are working together, I want to say this firm and clear to make sure everyone knows we got your back. So we have your back in terms of going to court if necessary, in terms of filing injunctions, in terms of reaching out to election administrators well beforehand. So I know all the leaders on this call, you're already having those conversations with your election officials on what happens if a machine goes down, on what happens if, there is intimidation out front, because that's certainly something we need to look at. I want everyone on this call to leave and feel empowered. And so the issues that you should be concerned are still the issues. We want to make sure that, if our young people are on the call, that, we are crossing every I, dotting every T, and making sure we are voting. We are voting first and foremost, and then we are casting our ballots. But I want you to know that the team is working. We are working, and we've got your back. So in terms of issues, I want your biggest issue to be how many people you are bringing to the polls with you, how you are getting there, who else you are bringing to get involved, because the team is working both with partners, both NAACP side state conference and the NAACP national side, the lawyers committee, partnering with legal defense fund, like you insert entity here, they're at the table this year. We understand what is at stake. And so I want everyone to think about this in slightly a different way. Who you bring into the polls, that person in your family who's always posting online, maybe some misinformation, because we know disinformation is information that is put out there with a negative intent. Misinformation is information that, quite frankly, my well-intentioned Nana does. She'll share out a link on Facebook and did you know this? And did you see that? Without necessarily properly vetting it. So I want us to kind of shift our mindset into the framework of our biggest issue is how many people in my family am I going to get out? My uncle that I know is always saying some off-color comments about all political parties. How am I bringing my uncle out? How am I making sure that every person that I'm talking to has a plan to vote? So that's the first and foremost framework I want us to take is let's think about this in a way of how are we educating our communities and bringing them out. Steve and I, again, will talk around some of the registration, the education, the mobilization. I want our biggest issue to be concerned in that mobilization. Who are we bringing out? But then on the inverse side, if you do experience something or encounter some type of issue, want you to go through our in-state channels to make sure the state conference is aware of this issue that has arisen. But I also want you to know and be getting this information to Karen so everyone gets all the links. Want you to utilize the NAACP voter incident report form. That voter incident report form is a form that our Office of General Counsel, our lawyers, our partner lawyers, we really work on the back end of this like form. You submit the issue, it's geolocated to the area so we know exactly where you're at, and then it gets triaged to the right lawyer. So whether it's something about ID requirements that you were told, we've got someone who focuses on ID. Whether it's about the intimidation that you occurred or you see something that is intimidating, we've got that covered. So really want everyone to focus on two things: who you bring into the polls, how many people you're going to bring, are they making a plan? And then know that the NAACP and all of our partner organizations have your back. So what you need to do if encountering an issue is lifting up the NAACP voter incident report form. And that's where we'll triage that information and get back to you as soon as possible. So hope it's okay, Gayleen, that I took us just a little bit different direction. There's certainly a lot of things that we need and issues that we need to care about, but I want everyone on this call to know that we've got your back. Make sure we are voting, bring in as many people as possible to vote. And if you do encounter an issue, please utilize the NAACP incident report form, particularly for all of our members on this call, because that is so much so what gives our legal team that standing to advocate on your behalf. If you are a member of the NAACP and you have encouraged or encountered some type of issue, that is where our legal team can really double down on your behalf because you are a member of the NAACP.
Great. Thank you so much. That's exactly what we needed to hear. And Ryan, I'm going to pivot over to you, because I know you dealt with a lot of incidents as well. Can you also say what some of the things that we should be most concerned about or look out for voter protection in this election?
Sure. And I mean, again, I just want to start where I left off previously, just saying, public education, making sure that people have that information, because again, that is going to be the biggest barrier for folks. That said, and there's a lot of other issues that relate to that. For example, we talk about restoration of rights and having folks who are disenfranchised that haven't been reenfranchised, but also just knowing if you're eligible. And many people, hundreds of thousands of people, were reenfranchised over the last 12 years, 14 years. And so just helping somebody figure out if they are eligible, in fact. So that those are really major issues. We're always concerned about list maintenance, and especially with an administration that's voter unfriendly. As recently as I think about a month ago now, the governor issued an executive order crowing publicly about how many supposed or alleged non-citizens they've removed from the rolls. It was 6,303 supposedly over the last 2 years, and that raised alarm bells. Because we know from in many cases, folks who are removed erroneously because the data that's used to identify them as alleged non-citizen is old, or perhaps doesn't capture that they have since become naturalized, or that it's just bad data, or it's not connected to the right person. So that's a concern. We're looking into that. We're investigating that. One of the other things that I really want to put a highlight, and this is something that you all can really be helpful in too, and using that that incident report form too that Tyler just mentioned, is we're really keeping a close eye on polling locations and making sure that there is not a reduction of polling locations in Black communities. This is also something that the Voting Rights Act of Virginia provides great protection for, because it requires changes to polling locations to be pre-cleared by the Attorney General, or to go through a public comment notice and comment period that's quite long, that allows community members and advocates to analyze the decision about where to put polling locations and determine if it's going to have a retrogressive effect on the ability of Black Virginians to participate and other Virginians of color to participate in the election. So that is also something that's also can be hard to keep tabs on in Virginia's 133 election jurisdictions. So keep tabs on that. Take a look. Make sure that if there's a polling place that you maybe remember from 4 years ago, or even 2 years ago, or last year, and it's not there, that's something to flag for sure. And you can absolutely flag that for through the state conference, and you can also flag it. You can also use the 866-hour vote EP hotline, election protection hotline, both as an informational tool, and that you can promote that for in your community. But you can also use it as a way to flag things. That's going to get to me really fast, because it's something that I'm monitoring. But yeah, so polling locations. Absolutely. This is another one that's been, it was a huge issue 4 years ago. It's just mail delays and the USPS delays in mail delivery, which affects, of course, mail ballot return to get in by the deadline. That's unfortunately also something that's very difficult to address because it's a different agency. It's not, they're not bound by like election law. It's more of an administrative issue. And of course, USPS under the current commissioner has been kind of planned obsolescence or kind of planned dysfunction and really tragic for such a great institution. But that is something that we're concerned about. That's also a voter information issue, voter education issue, making sure that people know to get their ballot in early. It's an organizing issue and a GOTV issue. Also, make sure that people get their ballots in early if they're voting by mail, or just go vote in person. The first day of early voting is this Friday. I cannot believe that the election is the general election 2024 is about to begin. This year has gone by so fast. And then the last issue I'll just mention is, since 2020, big lie, January 6th, there has been an election denial and subversion movement across the country, and Virginia is no exception. So there's nothing, there isn't anything in particular in terms of a threat in terms of that, but we are concerned about, conspiracy theorists and whatnot that may attempt to delay certification or not certify certain results or force a hand count or something that's going to throw a wrench in the whole administrative mechanism that results in ends in certification. The federal government did a great thing in passing a bipartisan, completely crazy that they got this done bipartisan manner, but the Electoral Count Act reform bill that streamline some of the processes on the federal level, but it's up to the states to make sure that their processes are going to comply with the new deadlines from that law. So that is just something we're watching. I hate to have to say that it used to be done on election day, or at least after the cure period, and now we have to pay attention all the way through certification and even now through into January 6th. So yeah, it's a brave new world we're living in, but those are the issues that we have our eyes on right now.
While I have you on there, you made I want to dispel a couple of misnomers that's out here. One of the things is that we want to make sure that you no longer have to get a witness protection on absentee ballots. And we want to make sure that anyone who applies for an absentee or vote by mail, same thing, that they will have their last four of their social and their year of their birth must be on every ballot that they mail in. We lost, I think I saw on the news, Ryan, where it was like 5% last year. I mean, the last election affected the Black community where absentee ballots weren't counted. So we want to make sure that we have those things on there. Now, Ryan, if someone has an absentee.
Galen, can I say this?
Yes.
That's why it's so important. I think if you can possibly vote in person early, you go vote in person early. If there's a problem with your registration or anything, you've got plenty of time to fix it. But if you vote early, your vote is cast, you're done. There's not going to be any kickback. They can't kick your vote out. Your vote is cast with everybody else's. And if you do it early, you can avoid a lot of problems. Mailing in, anything can happen. The post office may mess you up. If you have to mail it in, okay, that's better than nothing. But it'd be much better if you can vote as early as possible in person, get it over with.
Yep, that's great. Thank you so much for that. And so we really want to get everyone to vote in person. If someone, Ryan, if someone wants to vote by mail, but they can take it themselves. Can they have someone else take them for them? Take it to the location for
them? I can find that out in about 5 seconds, but you can also call the 866 Our Vote hotline to answer that kind of question. Same question about what do you need to do to complete the application for a mail ballot, which I believe the deadline is 11 days for the election. So don't wait. Definitely get it done early. Oh, I'm getting my child is coming in the room. But yeah, so all of these questions can be answered just with a quick phone call. You can actually text 866 Our Vote now too. I should have mentioned that earlier.
Right.
But yes, you can.
Okay.
So yeah, only the voter themselves can drop off the ballot at the registrar's office, but there are no prohibitions or restrictions on who drops off the voter's ballot at a ballot drop box.
Right.
And that, yeah, so that answers the question there as far as who
Right.
can return it. You can bring your family members' ballots or your community members' ballots.
So the key is definitely, if you can vote in person, please vote in person. Please vote early, starting this Friday, September 20th. We have Sunday vote in several locations across the Commonwealth. Start planning your Sunday vote now. You know, start partnering with your churches. We'll help you with a flyer if you need a flyer to get done. But start planning whether it's going to be a march. I know in Hampton we have a march, and then everybody votes, and after that, then we have a like Sunday dinner across the parking lot after you vote. You can't give people water while they're in line. You can't coerce anyone into voting. Anything you do have to be done after voting. So please make sure you do that. I was in line. I was last year. I remember somebody was giving some water, and that was a no. You can't give anybody. That was a law that was passed. That I know back in 2008 we was able to give food and everything else, but you can't even do that now. So anything that you do, make sure it's after the person vote. Don't coerce them into voting. Want to make sure I make that clear as well. Phaedra, I want to add you on how can an NAACP branches across the Commonwealth, Virginia, across the Commonwealth, mobilize communities to counteract the potential threats posed by Project 2025.
Yeah, I said it before and I'll say it again, educate folks, make sure, because time and time again, research has shown when folks are made aware of the threat, they are empowered and ready to fight back and join you. And so the NAACP has actually created a toolkit. I think I saw Karen put it in the chat earlier, but there's a website. It's got talking points, it's got policy positions.
Wow, nice.
We have got sample social media posts, all the things that you need to help educate those in your community. We provided for you. And if it's missing, feel free to reach out and we'll make sure that we dig and get the information that you need.
That is great. Then that toolkit is wonderful. So please, when we send it out, use those social media memes and a toolkit so that we can really get the message out to everyone as well. We're going to take a few questions, and Karen, can you bring Dr. Clavell back on, and we'll take a few questions in the Q&A. We're going to stick to our subject matter because of time.
Can I jump in real quick? Because I saw there was a couple.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. There's a couple of questions in the chat about eligibility.
Go ahead.
And I can't see the full names, but someone asked, is there a website voters can visit to check their eligibility online? I don't believe so in Virginia, but you should call the 866-OUR-VOTE hotline and ask questions about eligibility. Same answer for the next question, right? I have a neighbor that has a felony conviction for DUI for years past. That would be something that you call the 866-OUR-VOTE hotline. There's also a Campaign Legal Center, another national partner. They have a Restore Your Vote project that has an online lookup tool that you can walk through that would walk you through the process for checking that. But that's also a resource that would be provided by the volunteer when you call the hotline. So really, the hotline is just such an incredible resource, and you should definitely take advantage of it if you have questions.
Ryan, I'd also point out that
definitely.
DUI is rarely a felony. So they may not have
Mhm.
lost their voting rights with a DUI conviction. Some DUIs are felonies, but most are not.
Yeah, so that's a good starting point. If you
right.
just check to make sure that it's actually a disqualifying offense. If it's not, then you're good to go.
I think that let me just say this. I want to remind everyone too that to bring some form of ID, although photo ID is not required, you have to have some form of ID, and we'll send out the voter guide. There's a voter guide that the State Board of Elections have. They have all this information on it, and you'll get that in the follow-up. But we have to make sure that someone brings some form of acceptor ID. If you got a photo ID, please bring the photo ID with you when you go to vote in person.
What kind of ID do you need, Galen?
It's a list of photo. It's a list of IDs that you can have. It could be a utility bill.
It does not have to be
ID.
it does not have to be a photo ID.
It doesn't, but we still recommend it.
Okay.
We still recommend it, and we're going to send that list out with the voter guide so that everyone can have it. A few important dates. Remember, September 20th is early vote. The last day to register to vote is October 15th, and I know Tyler and Stephen will give you some more dates. But after October the 15th, on October the 16th, people can register and vote same day all the way through election day and on election day, November the 5th. But we still want everyone to vote, to register to vote prior to October the 15th. After that, when you register to vote and I'm registered to vote and vote same day, you vote by provisional ballot. It'll still be counted, but still is by provisional ballot. But we're still encouraging everyone. And we'll be sending out some tools with QR codes. We're putting these flyers in barbershops, hair salons, restaurants, in public restrooms, everywhere, so people can register wherever they are. They can check their voter registration wherever they are. They can sign up to volunteer, and they can sign up to join in local branch. So we're trying to put this everywhere because now everybody's asking for voter registration. So we call these unmanned voter registration drives. So people can do it wherever they are and not have to have somebody sit there watching them while they do it. And so we're going to be sending out some tools for that as well.
If I can add, Galen, to the tools, you mentioned something that is a word that I'm hearing, voter guides. And so wanted to note, and if I could just get some reactions into the chat. I know we've had a really engaged chat, but something that my phrase for this election cycle is facts are nonpartisan. Facts are nonpartisan. So if I could get someone to put that into the chat for me, let's get some reactions on that. And when I say by facts are nonpartisan, what I'm bringing up is that we will have, and through Stephen, and the follow-up information that you have to this, you will have a request form to request a C3 nonpartisan voter guide for the presidential election and the vice president. These are candidate guides that says Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, JD Vance, Tim Walz, and it shows where they stand on each of the issues. And so as we're building off of the question that went to Phaedra on what can we do in communities, and she hit the nail on the head on educating, not only about Project 2025, but where the candidates stand on the issues. Clearly, we are nonpartisan, but political as hell. We are not blind. We are an entity that wants to go through the facts. And so much of something I hear all across the country from our members are like, how do we skirt this line, putting information out in front of voters while remaining nonpartisan by putting the facts out to a voter? We're not at risk.
Sterling, you're frozen.
Of doing anything out of our compliance. It may, can y'all say something?
You're frozen, Sterling.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can see you now. Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was saying that it may seem crazy or it may seem backwards when you see on paper what one candidate believes and has said and has done, as where another candidate, what they've said on paper, what they've done, the policy they've been able to advocate for. And so want everyone to be able to know coming out of this call that there are voter guides that are available to you for both the president and the vice president, where we're talking at those federal U.S. elections, the federal president and vice presidential seats, where you can then inform our communities with everything we're already doing, whether that's community forums. I'm seeing stuff in the chat around events that are forthcoming. Think about ways where you can have those guides physically so that we are just educating voters again, not only to what Project 2025 means, but where the candidates stand on the issues as well.
Great, thank you. Before we get last remarks from everyone, I want to bring in Stephen Miller-Pitts, who is our state director for civic engagement. And Tyler, you two can work together. But Stephen, can you give us our charge going forward?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody took some good notes on the robust conversation that we had tonight. I'm Stephen Miller-Pitts, the State Civic Engagement Director. Excited to be here. You should have seen some emails from me going around. We did an all-call with all the chapter presidents and PAC chairs last Sunday evening. So listen, I see a lot of great stuff going into the chat, but I guess because I like to keep my job throughout the election, if your unit needs one of your vote.org links and you do not have it, each unit has a specific link. The links for registration, check who's on your ballot, verify your registration. So I would like, if you are not using your individual unit link, to put a QR code on and when you do your various events. Then I also have a state conference link for the whole state conference for your vote.org link. So please get with me, email me, and I will get you your specific link. So it's imperative as we do this work that we, and sorry, my son's in the background. We document the data effectively so the NAACP can continue along this work, and we know exactly where we have met our goals. Another thing I want to bring up is we've been doing Tyler shared with me the voter registration verification link and those tools, and so we only have right now, units have been doing the work, but since September 1st, we have about 250 people that have used those specific links. That's either to register to vote, to check your ballot status, and to verify your voter registration status. So it's imperative that units get out there and do the work. All right. If you're not tired come November 6th, then we didn't do enough. And the proper way for us to do this, to use the links. I also have various graphics that should be in your emails. And I know in the follow-on email, you'll get links to the graphics that we have created that have the QR codes embedded in them for the state conference. If you want your own signature graphic and you don't have that skill set or those resources at your local branch, then please email me. And I will work with my graphics guy to get you curated graphics. I know also Galen worked on a template that all you have to do is plug and play your local information. And it's a great all-in template with a QR code that, like she said, we want to use voter contact less methods to reach as many people as possible. You can put up these graphics and barbershops. In my local community, I've been dealing with my food trucks because they got the windows in the food trucks.
Oh, yeah.
Them up there in the food trucks, and as they go, people, while they placing their orders, they will see them. So I encourage you, if you need me to work on maybe a pitch for you to go out there and get with your food trucks, you can also search them on streetfoodvendor.org or something to that nature. I'll make sure I get the information to Karen so that information can go all out to the branch, each branch. But it's imperative that we do this work comprehensively and collectively. I'm working on the creation of a master point of contact list. We can't do this work just with ourselves and our branches. We have to work with our partners. So that's your local D9 chapters, your churches, any org that is in this nonpartisan space. Let's work with them collectively so we can get all the individuals to the polls. And let me go over some key civic holiday information. All of you should know that tomorrow is National Voter Registration Day. So hopefully you're doing something locally to participate in Voter Registration Day. On September 20, not only is it the first day of early voting, it is also National Black Voter Day. So we want everybody that is of this persuasion to go out there and vote early. The sooner you tell people, as soon as you cast a vote, you'll stop getting calls. Well, you might stop getting calls because I might need you to call somebody else so they could come out to vote too, right? But you'll stop getting calls about you going to vote, okay? And so you tell everybody that, go out there and vote early. Listen, we can win this election early on if we get everybody out to vote. All right, so we need to go in these communities and neighborhoods. We need to figure out comprehensive ways to work collaboratively. Churches have vans because we know there's a lot of barriers, transportation in some of these communities. But if we can work collectively and get individuals to the polls early, then we won't have to worry about trying to do it at the last minute on actual election day. And we know that all stops will be out on election day to try to subvert the vote. So let's play the game a little differently and get everybody voting early. And so that's the module. National Voter Education Week will be October 7th to the 11th, and Vote Early Day is October 29th, and then Election Hero Day is going to be November 5th. And so we're doing we were trying to do a robust program with reaching nationally 50,000 voter registration or verification for all units, which runs through this week. So you still have time to get all your unit members to check their voter registration status through the vote.org link and put it on social media. It's one of the easiest ways to get individuals to click on it and to get the information out. Pass it around in your group chats as you pass the memes of people eating cats and dogs. Pass the vote.org link, okay? Because we need everybody to also know that there is positive information out there, correct information out there, so that they can be equally engaged in this election cycle. And so I want to pause right there for any questions and let Tyler chime in for anything that I may have missed.
I think, Stephen, hopefully y'all can hear me. I'm on by my phone as well now. But I think Stephen hit the nail on the head with the activations and things that we are looking to do. Vote.org being unit-specific information. So we're talking registration, education, and mobilization here. So right now, we are 49 days from the election. I really want to emphasize not only that we are mobilizing and getting out the vote for this election cycle, something we have not fully touched on during this call is that there are 76 days after the election until Inauguration Day. And we're going to need everyone very involved in communicating correct information to our communities after the election as well. So not only are we full on this registration path, are we on our early voting, are we mobilizing and getting out the vote, but we also need to make sure that we, being a trusted messenger, and every one of you being leaders in your own communities, are relaying fact-based, trustworthy information from the moment from now until that Inauguration Day. Regardless of the result of this election cycle, we know we're either advancing a lot of policy or we are protecting policy. That's the way that this looks. And so after that election cycle, we also need to keep that energy. After this election, we also need to keep that energy fully focused on pushing out fact-based information to all of our communities so that we are aware of the process to swearing in the president of the next president.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much.
Just lastly, also just for everybody in the unit, this is also an opportunity for you to grow your branches. Because if you recognize one of the key things that Tyler said, right? And obviously I believe the NAACP will cover non-members that might get into situations that might need legal protections, right? But more specifically, if you get individuals to join as members and get them out there volunteering, then they're covered as a member, specifically. So if anything does arise, then we have the full backing and legal protections of the NAACP. And so I just want to touch on that too. You can use this as a recruitment method on your volunteers to make sure that they join their chapter so they can get that extra layer of protection. So if anything does happen, we can take care of it at the national level.
Stephen, you're giving away some money, right?
Yeah, I'm giving away some money. Tyler, close your ears. So I'm giving away some money. I'm gonna get it approved. Because Tyler,
I'm sorry. Okay,
budget,
that's
it's all
okay. Don't say
good.
anything then.
But look at your emails, okay? And so if you meet these qualifications in the email that will go out that when Karen sends it out, just know don't leave no money on the table, okay? And so I appreciate that, Gayleen. Look, the money's out there. I'm gonna do everything I can do legally to get the money to you and your branches and make a little competition about it, right? Because I believe, competition it breeds more engagement. And so be on the lookout for that. And let's go. I want to give it away. So let's go.
All right, great. Thank you so much. We're going to have last remarks from everyone and final remarks from our president. But I did put a couple of the graphics that we put together down here in Hampton. And we're going to create templates out of them. But it's just something cards. We have posters and different, forms to be able to put a certain poster to go in a barbershop, something that could go into a nightclub. We got certain things that's really easy that people can just go and scan wherever they are and just register, check their voter registration and get all the information. And we still need volunteers. So that QR code is very important. People want things to do now. They're asking, what can I do? So tell them they can join their NAACP branch and they can volunteer and have them use that. And everyone in your branch should sign up to be a volunteer on that QR code. So please, please use that, and that'll be in all that information as well. So with that, I'm going to go back to our panelists. First, I want to thank you all. You all were great to give us some final remarks. And I will start off with Ryan. I'll start off with you.
Thanks, Gillian, and thanks to everyone for being here. It's just so exciting and energizing and really inspiring to be together in community with you all. And you know, we're in the home stretch, obviously. I would just add, I mean, you know, I've said this before, but really this is our chance to make an impact that's going to resonate for generations, no doubt. And so, you know, make some time, find some time, get together with some friends, you know, talk to your family members, your community members, make sure they have a plan to vote, make sure they have all the information they need to vote, sign up for an election protection volunteer shift, sign up for another volunteer shift through the NAACP. You know, just, we got, you know, I think it's about 47 or 48 days to go. And we need to make every single day count. So 866 our vote. It's a fun, you have a fun conversation with a really awesome volunteer, get any information you need, plant that seed within your family community, make sure people know that that's a resource. If they don't know it's a resource, they can take advantage of it. And yeah, we're gonna keep doing this.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Dr. Clavell.
Once again, thank you so much, and everyone is working on behalf of voting rights and also the rights of all. These forums are very important, and I echo everything that everyone has said on it. Make sure you stay informed, make sure you know your rights, make sure you participate, and make sure you lend your time and your voluntary efforts to this very important effort of fighting for voting rights. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the finish line.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Phaedra, go to you.
Thank you. Yes, I would say, you know, continue the fight. You have really great leadership here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So lean to your state leadership. The National is here to support you. The one parting thought I would give you is, you know, we've talked about making sure folks are educated as to what Project 2025 is, but I think we also have to make sure that we make it seem real and something that could happen, because when you think about all of these attacks, it's really difficult to wrap your brain around the fact that all of this could actually happen. And so, unfortunately, states like Virginia, states like Texas, states like Tennessee, states like Florida see these aspects of these laws happening right now. And so I want to make sure that we lift that up and draw that connection for folks so that they can draw the line from where we are now to what could be. But keep up the fight, and thank you for your hard work.
Great, thank you so much. Tyler?
Facts are nonpartisan. We are educating folks on what is at stake, where candidates stand on issues. And in doing that, we are by no means skewing or tilting information. It may seem very wild that the facts are the facts right now and where someone stands versus where someone else stands. But what we're doing is not only educating our communities about what's at stake, but who is responsible or trying to take us in either direction of what is at stake. My closing remarks are: facts are nonpartisan. Let's get out the vote.
Great, thank you so much. All right, Congressman Scott.
Thank you, Galen, and thank the NAACP for putting this together. We have a lot of, and one of the things that is new this time is that people aren't even, people aren't even apologizing for it. They're campaigning on states' rights. We haven't heard anybody talking about states' rights since the 1860s when governors were standing in the school. And they just proudly, Trump is proudly talking about states' rights. We're talking about
We're losing you, Congressman.
Hello?
We lost you, Congressman.
I'm sorry.
There you go. We can hear you now. We couldn't hear you before.
Okay. They're unapologetic about suppressing the vote. They're talking about dogs. Has nothing to do with Haitian immigrants. It's just an opportunity to talk bad about immigrants, get people all worked up about immigrants so you can discriminate against immigrants. That's what that's to do about the truth of the matter. Just an opportunity to talk bad about them. Now, former President Trump has told one group, if you vote for me this time, you'll never. What he meant is get to vote for me, be a dictator. They're just unapologetic. They've told us what they're going to do. They have their plan, and our job is to make sure that we do everything and doesn't take effect. We have the power to do something about it. If we vote early, in person, if possible, but vote early, because when we vote, we win.
That's right. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you so much. And I just want to make two quick points before I turn it over to our president. Again, I want to thank all of our panelists. This was great, a great panel. If you have a book club, have everyone read a chapter of the Project 2025, and then you can come together and you can dissect that together as well. And Agenda 47, you can do that. And I can't reiterate enough to vote early and bring people with you to vote. I think on Friday, let's make September 20th, our November 5th. Let's turn out in large numbers this Friday and make sure that we turn out early. And on November 5th, we want people who aren't registered to vote, that we're going to take them to the polls so they can register and vote and vote by provisional ballot. So we definitely want to make that happen. So with that, I want to thank you all again. You'll be getting a update from Karen Jones. Karen, thank you for facilitating this Zoom for us. And she'll be sending out all this information as a follow-up email. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our president, Cozy Bailey.
Thank you very much, Gayleen, and thank you again to all the members of this great panel. There's been a lot of information provided over the past 90 minutes or so, and some of us may find it a little difficult to absorb it all and analyze it all and say and understand what it does mean. So let me just try to synthesize what you've heard here. We have a critical and acute focus on the contents and the understanding and meaning of Project 2025. As the Congressman stated, and as Gayleen also illustrated, Project 2025 is just the latest in culture wars for manifestos, and that's what it is, a manifesto within this country. That's why we spend so much time on that. And we need to understand that this fight and this battle is continuous. But often the tactics in this battle have changed. As the offensive tactics in this culture war against us as people of color change, then our defensive responses need to adapt as well. And that's how we pull together and utilize all of this information that we have received this evening. Remember, as many wise men have said, we as a people do not have permanent friends and we don't have permanent enemies. What we do have is permanent interests. And the NAACP, along with our partners, continues to fight to achieve those permanent interests in an environment that is stacked against us. That's why our chairman says that we may be nonpartisan, but we are political as hell. And so with that, absorb this, understand what we need to do, understand what any of the candidates, be they at the presidential level or the congressional level, are bringing forward to you. Make your decision and then vote early in order to make sure that your vote counts. Thank you all this evening. Let's continue the fight, because what happens, as the Congressman said, when we fight, we win.
We win.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you again. Bye-bye.